You almost certainly ate one today. Maybe not on its own, cracked into a pan, but hidden inside your bread, your cake, your pasta, your mayonnaise, your morning pastry. And you almost certainly did not think about it for even a second. Yet the thing you ate is one of the most perfect and astonishing objects in all of nature. Consider what an egg actually is. Inside that thin, fragile shell is a complete kit for building a living creature from scratch. Everything a growing chick needs, all of its food, all of its water, all of its raw material is sealed inside along with the developing life itself. It needs nothing from the outside world except warmth and time. No feeding, no tending. A self-contained, self-sufficient capsule of life, perfectly packaged and perfectly sealed. It is, quite genuinely, one of nature's greatest inventions. And human beings took this small miracle and did something extraordinary with it. We turned it into the invisible foundation of our food, weaving it into a huge share of everything we cook and bake. We made it a universal symbol of creation and rebirth, worshipped across the world. We turned it into imperial treasure worth millions, and, in one of the strangest twists of all, we made it a frontline weapon in humanity's fight against pandemics. Today, the world produces well over 1 trillion eggs every single year. It is one of the most common, cheapest, and most useful foods on the entire planet, and also one of the most overlooked. So how did a bird's egg become all of these things at once? This is the story of the perfect package. This is the history of eggs. Let us begin with a fact that sounds like a riddle. The egg is far, far older than the chicken. In fact, the egg is older than the birds themselves. For hundreds of millions of years, long before there were any chickens or any humans, animals were laying eggs. The dinosaurs laid eggs. The ancient reptiles laid eggs. The egg is one of nature's oldest and most successful designs for bringing new life into the world. A sealed container that lets an embryo develop safely outside its mother's body. It is a design so good that it has survived every mass extinction, outlasted the dinosaurs, and continued almost unchanged for a span of time so vast the human mind can barely hold it. When you hold an egg, you are holding a piece of technology that nature perfected over hundreds of millions of years. And this, by the way, quietly answers one of the oldest riddles ever asked. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Once you know that countless creatures were laying eggs for hundreds of millions of years before the first chicken ever existed, the answer becomes clear. The egg came first by an almost unimaginable margin. Long before there was anything you could call a chicken, the world was already full of eggs. The riddle only feels difficult if you forget just how ancient and how universal the egg truly is. So for as long as there have been humans, and even before, our ancestors did what countless animals do. They found nests and they ate the eggs. A wild bird's egg was one of the most perfect pieces of food a hungry forager could ever find. It was rich, packed with fat and protein, completely self-contained, and it came in its own protective, portable packaging. It was, in a sense, the original convenience food, free for the taking to anyone who could find a nest. The great leap came with the domestication of the chicken. As we have explored before, the chicken descends from a wild jungle bird of Southeast Asia, tamed thousands of years ago. And while the chicken would eventually become the most eaten meat on the planet, for much of early history, its most valuable gift was not its body, but its eggs. A hen would lay again and again, providing a renewable walking source of fresh, perfect food day after day without ever having to be killed. For a farming family, a few hens were a small, self-refilling food factory in the yard. But the egg was never only food. From the very beginning, human beings looked at this sealed capsule of life and saw something profound. They saw the mystery of creation itself. Think about it from the point of view of an ancient person. Here is a smooth, lifeless-looking stone. You keep it warm, and after a time, it cracks open, and out climbs a living, breathing, moving creature. To people without any knowledge of biology, this was nothing short of magic. Life appearing from within a sealed and silent shell. It is no wonder that across the entire world, in cultures that had never met one another, human beings independently arrived at the very same powerful idea, the egg as the source of all creation. In myth after myth, from ancient Egypt to India to China to the peoples of the Pacific and beyond, the entire universe is said to have been born from a great cosmic egg. The world itself hatched into being. The sky and the earth were the two halves of a single shell. This image was so intuitive, so obvious, that it appeared again and again all over the planet. The egg was not just breakfast, it was the symbol of the beginning of everything. And this reverence is astonishingly ancient. In Africa, archaeologists have found pieces of ostrich eggshell, carefully engraved with delicate patterns by human hands around 60,000 years ago. That makes decorated eggshell some of the very oldest art that our species has ever produced. 60,000 years ago, before writing, before farming, before cities, human beings were already holding eggs in their hands and turning them into objects of beauty and meaning. Our fascination with the egg is almost as old as humanity itself. And it was not only art. Those same giant ostrich eggshells were among the earliest containers our species ever used. Emptied of their contents, a single ostrich egg made a strong natural flask that could hold a good amount of water, and desert-dwelling peoples used them as canteens to carry precious water across dry country, sometimes burying caches of filled eggs to return to later. Tens of thousands of years before anyone invented the bottle, the egg was already both a food and a container. Nature had packaged its perfect food inside a perfect vessel, and humans used both. That deep symbolism of life and rebirth never went away. It simply changed its clothes. The most familiar example is the Easter egg. Long before it became associated with any one religion, the egg was a natural symbol of spring, of new life bursting out after the death of winter. Ancient peoples exchanged and decorated eggs as part of their spring festivals of renewal and fertility. When Christianity spread across these cultures, it absorbed this ancient symbol and gave it a new meaning. The egg, with its hard shell cracking open to release new life, became a perfect symbol of resurrection and rebirth. The chocolate egg your children hunt for in the garden is a direct descendant of a symbol thousands upon thousands of years old. The egg has been carrying the meaning of new life for longer than almost any other object we possess. Now let us return from myth to the marvel itself, because the egg is not only a symbol, it is a genuine masterpiece of natural engineering. Look closely at the shell. It seems simple, but it is a wonder. It is strong enough, thanks to its clever curved shape, to protect the life inside, yet delicate enough for a tiny chick to break out from within. That strength is a beautiful trick of geometry. The egg's rounded, arch-like shape spreads any pressure applied to its ends outward across the whole shell, exactly the way the arches and domes of great cathedrals carry enormous weight. This is why, famously, it is almost impossible to crush a raw egg by squeezing it end to end in your bare hand, no matter how hard you try. The same shell that a newborn chick can tap its way out of. From the inside can withstand surprising force from the outside. Nature built a container that is armored against the world, but yields gently to the life within. It is a masterpiece of engineering that no human designer taught it. And it is not fully sealed. The shell is covered in thousands of microscopic pores, invisible holes that let the developing chick breathe, allowing air in and moisture out while keeping bacteria at bay. It is a living, breathing container. Inside, the yolk is a concentrated store of fat and nutrients to fuel the growing embryo, and the white is a shock-absorbing, protein-rich cushion and water supply. The whole system is so complete and so nutritious that the egg is often called one of nature's most perfect foods, containing very nearly everything a body needs. The egg's one great weakness is that, for all its clever design, it does eventually spoil. And so, across the world, humans became inventive about beating that weakness and storing the egg's goodness for the lean months. In China, cooks learned to pack eggs in mixtures of clay, ash, salt, and lime, transforming them over weeks into the famous preserved eggs with dark, translucent whites and green-grey yolks, edible many months later. Elsewhere, people pickled eggs in vinegar, salted them, or sealed them in liquids that plugged the shell's tiny pores and locked freshness inside for the winter. Long before refrigerators, humans had found half a dozen clever ways to catch the egg's fleeting perfection and hold onto it. The egg was too valuable to let a single one go to waste. But here is where the egg reveals its most surprising secret, the reason it hides in so much of what we eat. Because in the kitchen, the egg is not just food, it is a magician. There is no other single ingredient on Earth that can do so many completely different things. An egg can bind. Its proteins act like a glue, holding a meatball, a burger, or a batter together so it does not fall apart. An egg can leaven. Whip its whites into a foam full of trapped air, and it can lift a cake, a soufflé, or a meringue into something impossibly light and tall. An egg can emulsify. This is its most magical trick of all. Egg yolk has the almost unbelievable power to force oil and water, two things that refuse to mix, to join together into a smooth, stable cream. This is the entire secret behind mayonnaise, behind hollandaise sauce, behind so many of the rich sauces of classic cooking. Without the egg, they simply cannot exist. An egg can thicken a custard, glaze a pastry with a golden shine, and even clarify a cloudy broth into a crystal-clear soup. Bind, leaven, emulsify, thicken, glaze, clarify. Stop and think about how much of all baking and all classic cooking secretly depends on these powers. The egg is the invisible hero standing behind a huge share of the food you eat. It is hiding in your bread and your cakes, in your sauces and your pastries, doing its quiet chemical magic while getting almost none of the credit. When people say a dish is impossible to make without eggs, this is why. The egg is the great enabler of the kitchen. And when it is not hiding inside a dish, the egg is often crowning it. Look across the cuisines of the world, and you find the egg placed lovingly on top of almost everything. A golden yolk resting on a bowl of noodles or rice. A fried egg sliding over a burger, a steak, or a plate of hash. Eggs poached in spiced tomato, folded into an omelette, whisked into soups, or simmered in tea until the eggshells crack into marble patterns. In nearly every food culture on Earth, and with almost no coordination between them, human beings arrived at the same conclusion, that there are very few dishes an egg cannot improve. It is the one ingredient that seems to belong everywhere, equally at home in a peasant's breakfast and a king's banquet. And because the egg was so precious, so perfect, and so full of meaning, humans also turned it into pure luxury. In Imperial Russia, the Tsars commissioned a series of eggs unlike any other in the world. These were not for eating. They were exquisite creations of gold, enamel, and precious jewels, crafted by master jewelers into some of the most valuable and famous decorative objects ever made. Each one opened to reveal a tiny jeweled surprise hidden inside, an echo of the real egg's magic of concealing a treasure within a shell. Today, these imperial eggs are worth many millions of dollars each and are counted among the great treasures of the world. The humble egg, the free food from the nest, had been elevated into an emperor's most precious jewel. The egg had also worked its way deep into our very language, in ways that reveal how central it was to daily life. We warn against putting all your eggs in one basket. We call a kind person a good egg and say someone caught in a blunder has egg on their face. And most tellingly of all, we call our life savings a nest egg. That phrase comes from an old farming trick of leaving one egg in the nest to encourage a hen to keep laying there. Over time, it came to mean the small store of wealth you set aside and build upon, exactly as a hen's laying builds on that first egg. When you talk about your nest egg, your retirement savings, you are, without knowing it, still talking about a hen and her eggs. Even our idea of saving for the future is quietly shaped like an egg. But the modern story of the egg is not about jewels. It is about scale, about turning nature's perfect package into an industrial commodity on a scale our ancestors could never have dreamed of. The wild ancestor of the chicken lays only a modest number of eggs in a year, perhaps a dozen or so, just enough to raise a clutch of chicks. But over the last century, humans have bred the laying hen into something else entirely. The modern laying hen has been shaped, generation by generation, into a living egg machine that can lay an egg almost every single day, producing hundreds of eggs a year, vastly more than nature ever intended. It is one of the most extreme feats of selective breeding in all of agriculture. To produce eggs on this colossal scale and at rock-bottom prices, the industry built a vast and often troubling system. Enormous numbers of these hens are kept in tightly packed cages, their entire lives devoted to producing a relentless flood of cheap eggs. This industrial system is what made the egg one of the cheapest sources of complete protein on the planet, available to nearly everyone, but it did so at a real cost to the welfare of billions of birds, a cost that more and more people have begun to question. The perfect package had become an industrial product, churned out by the trillion. And that word is not an exaggeration. Humanity now produces well over 1 trillion eggs every single year. It is difficult to even picture a number that large. 1 trillion tiny, perfect capsules of life, cracked into pans and folded into batters across the entire world, every year, forever. But now we come to the strangest and least known part of the entire story. Because the egg is not only feeding the world, for nearly a century it has also been quietly defending it. Here is something most people have no idea about. The main way the world has protected itself against the influenza virus for over 80 years is by growing the vaccine inside chicken eggs. To make most flu vaccine, scientists take fertilized hens' eggs, inject the flu virus into them, and let the virus multiply for a few days inside the egg, using it as a tiny living factory. Then they harvest the virus, kill it, purify it, and turn it into the flu shot that goes into people's arms. This method was discovered back in the 1930s, and even in our age of advanced genetic engineering, the overwhelming majority of the world's flu vaccine is still made this way, one egg at a time. The discovery itself was wonderfully simple. In the 1930s, a scientist found that if he bored a tiny hole in the shell of a fertilized egg and slipped the flu virus inside, the egg would obligingly grow the virus for him, turning into a miniature living laboratory. That humble insight, that an egg would do the hard work of multiplying a virus, became the foundation of nearly a century of vaccine production. We had accidentally discovered that the perfect package for growing a chick was also a perfect package for growing the tools to fight our own diseases. The numbers are staggering. Making the flu vaccine for a single country, for a single flu season, can consume well over 100 million eggs. And because this supply is so precious and so vital to national security, governments guard it carefully. In the United States, the government maintains secret flocks of chickens kept in undisclosed locations under heavy security, purely to guarantee a supply of the special eggs needed to make vaccines. Somewhere out there, right now, are heavily protected, top-secret hens whose eggs are considered a matter of national defense. The same humble object you crack into a frying pan is, in another form, one of the frontline tools that protects humanity from a pandemic. And this reveals a hidden and frightening vulnerability, one that ties directly back to the bird itself. Because the great modern threat is bird flu, a strain of influenza that can sweep through and kill chickens by the millions. Think about the terrible trap in that. The disease we most need to make a vaccine against is a disease that kills the very hens whose eggs we need to make that vaccine. An outbreak severe enough could wipe out the flocks and cripple our ability to produce the shots to fight it all at the same time. Humanity has, in a very real sense, put an enormous number of its eggs in one very fragile basket. There is one more twist in the modern story of the egg, and it is a lesson in humility. For decades, the egg, this near-perfect food, was cast as a villain. Health authorities warned people away from eggs, blaming the cholesterol in the yolk for harming the heart, and millions of people dutifully gave them up. And then, after years of deeper research, the science shifted, and much of that fear was walked back, with eggs largely returning to their place as a nourishing food. It is a striking reminder that even our understanding of the simplest, oldest food on our plates is never quite finished, and that the humble egg has kept surprising us right up to the present day. So think about the whole extraordinary journey. A sealed capsule of life, one of nature's oldest and most perfect designs, far older than the chicken and older even than the birds. The original free food, plucked from wild nests by our earliest ancestors. A symbol so powerful that cultures across the entire world believed the universe itself was born from a great cosmic egg, and carved eggshells into art 60,000 years ago. The secret magician of the kitchen, hiding inside a huge share of everything we bake, binding and lifting and emulsifying while taking none of the credit. A jeweled treasure fit for an emperor, an industrial commodity produced by the trillion, and a top-secret, heavily guarded weapon in humanity's war against disease. All of that contained within a smooth, fragile shell that fits in the palm of your hand. The next time you crack an egg, pause for just a moment before you do. You are holding one of nature's most perfect inventions and one of humanity's most useful, a complete and sealed miracle that we learn to eat, to worship, to bake with, to treasure, and even to make medicine from. It is the perfect package, and we have spent our entire history discovering just how much it can hold. If this story changed the way you see the egg in your fridge, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories of everyday things. Leave a like if you learned something new, and tell me in the comments which part of the story surprised you the most. There is always more history waiting to be cracked open.